We had absolutely no expectations of making a fortune or becoming #1 in Korea. However, we had immense respect for the Korean market, so we believed we absolutely had to enter it and learn. For example, it's like how BTS holds many concerts in the US market, isn't it? That's right. It's the same as how all soccer players want to go to the EPL. That's why, regardless of the outcome, we decided to enter the Korean market with the mindset that we absolutely had to experience it, and that's why we put in so much effort. Nicolo, co-founder of Riot Games, even came and lived in Korea for 6 months for that reason. After understanding the Korean market very well and meeting almost everyone relevant, we thought this won't be easy, but still proceeded with the conviction we absolutely have to go to Korea. So our expectation was more like it might not work out, but we can't miss out on the Korean market. Let's do it. That's how we entered.
So it seems it would be hard to say that it grew explosively in Korea from the very beginning. Around when did you feel that it was on track, that you thought, we've finally established ourselves?
Launching in the Korean market was a very tough task. The reception for foreign games was uncertain, and the end companies, referring to major domestic game companies, were incredibly dominant. We thought it might not work out, but still held on to hope and prepared with immense effort. So we decided we had to launch without missing the peak season and aimed for a December release. Having to launch the game within 6 months was an almost impossible task, especially since it wasn't a Korean game and the headquarters wasn't here but in LA. Creating such a game from scratch, establishing a branch office, hiring people, localizing, creating PC bang benefits, and preparing for esports, there was just so much to do. For instance, what about the servers? Were they in Korea? We had servers too. We had to bring them all in and install them. Should have done it. Yes, that was something we absolutely had to do. After I joined, it was a ridiculously tight timeline. You could say I barely slept and worked weekends back then. We barely managed to prepare and conducted a closed beta in mid-November. Fortunately, there were several positive pieces of feedback. Firstly, people loved being able to play the game in Korean in our own language. Secondly, playing on Korean servers made the gaming environment much better. And I recall at that time we distributed about 100,000 RP, Riot points, and players were thrilled they could freely purchase items with it.
So RP is the in-game currency?
That's right, it's currency, yes. So, the overall response was decent, but that doesn't mean everything was good. We distributed keys to closed beta testers, and many people showed interest and took the keys. However, when the closed beta actually started, the participation rate wasn't as high as expected. So people would play the game for a day and then not return the next day. Retention was an issue. Looking at the numbers, it was very concerning. I thought, this could just be a flash in the pan and disappear.
This is a game that especially requires opponents, right? You need a lot of people for matchmaking to work.
Exactly. Matchmaking is crucial. You've hit the nail on the head. So we distributed more keys in a second wave. We thought the first distribution was enough, but players started to dwindle. We thought, oh no, if this continues, we're done for. So we had no choice but to hastily distribute more keys to increase the player count of players.
So like you said, shouldn't it be matchmaking, right? Also, during the closed beta, the testers are hardcore gamers.
A closed beta might seem like a simple test, but it's not. That's because core gamers participate in the closed beta, and these individuals are, in a way, influencers with significant sway. After the closed beta, they immediately post various opinions on communities. If these are negative, it can adversely affect the actual launch. So these were very critical moments. I was extremely worried. The feedback was decent, but the actual data wasn't good. While I was pondering what is going on. A few weeks later, on December 12th, we launched the open beta. I remember it being a Thursday. I couldn't sleep. There was so much to do, but I was so anxious because you just don't know how things will turn out.
For those who don't play games, open beta might sound like it's still a beta test. But in reality, these days, an open beta is practically the same as a game launch, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct. It's essentially a launch. At that time, you could purchase items in the shop. It was just labeled open beta, but was, for all intents and purposes, the official release. And as you mentioned, we were short on time. So we launched with a mix of anticipation and concern. I remember we opened in the morning. Users started trickling in, but by the evening, a surge of people caused server issues. Lag spikes, connection failures, and it wasn't even like a massive number of people had logged on. As you know, if server problems occur during the first weekend, players tend to abandon the game. From a player's perspective, they think, I don't really need to play this game. At that time, there were about 200 to 300 online games in Korea. There were Avenger-level games like FIFA, Lineage 1 and 2, WoW, StarCraft, and also a similar game called Chaos, so there was no compelling reason for them to play our game. If they couldn't log in or experienced lag, they would just quit. That's when I felt real terror. The exact scenario I had worried about most was starting to unfold. Since we didn't have staff in Korea for server installation, people came from headquarters and stayed for months. They wanted to go home, but they were receiving servers from Dell. We didn't use services like AWS back then, going to an IDC, installing everything, programming all night. But it seems their preparation was slightly insufficient. We had no idea. We lacked the expertise. I think the server design itself was flawed. And these guys were scheduled to fly back to the US on Friday. Their thinking was, we've installed it, I've been in Korea for months, haven't seen my family, I want to go home, I'm exhausted. They were set to leave Friday, but I caught them early Thursday morning.
Where are you going?
Where are you going? As if clinging to a departing lover, I pleaded, please don't go, I'm begging you, I'll die if this continues. If you guys leave, we're all dead. Please just stay a few more days. So those guys changed their tickets at the last minute. They went back to the IDC and worked all night trying to fix the issues. But it wasn't a perfect fix. It was more like a patch on a flawed design. Still, they couldn't stay any longer and left. As time went by, about 10 days later, I think it was, we made it to 10th place. We entered the top 10 faster than expected.
And people kept playing, even with those servers?
That's right. We were running on shaky servers. It felt like going on a long-distance trip, say, to Busan, in a ridiculously old car like a Tico or a Pony. Every single moment was tense. One wrong move and we could fail. These guys have all left and the player count is steadily increasing. I realized this wasn't sustainable, so I went to the headquarters. I grabbed the head of technology and said, you absolutely have to send Korean staff. We don't have the manpower. We're going to fail at this rate. But this was easier said than done. Riot was opening multiple international offices and was short-staffed. Pulling someone from their work at HQ to send them to Korea for weeks or months was practically impossible. Somehow I managed to persuade them and get support. So these engineers came to Korea and stayed in shifts. They didn't speak the language, so I was always trying to read their expressions, and out of gratitude I'd treat them to meals and drinks, and we'd take turns entertaining them. Whenever server issues arose, these guys who had authority back at HQ would communicate and apply patches, and that's how we moved forward. Then one day, around February or March, we saw that we had surpassed StarCraft and reached 4th or 5th place.
In 2012?
In 2012.
Whoa.
We climbed the ranks quite quickly.
So in just 3 or 4 months?
Exactly. It was unexpected for us. Usually, a moderate success would be around 10th place, but we reached around 4th. And it wasn't just any 4th place. We overtook the national game, StarCraft. We were all amazed. We all grew up playing StarCraft, right? It was such a huge and symbolic event that we were ecstatic, high-fiving, hugging, and celebrating like crazy.
You were the head of the branch office there?
That's correct. So it probably felt like when Coach Bento had to win against Portugal, right? But while it was great, I was constantly worried. Something's going to blow up sooner or later, because it still felt like I was driving that old pony. Then, around March or April, we hit number 1. It was completely unexpected. We were like, huh? And suddenly we were number 1. We thought we'll probably drop down soon, but we stayed at number 1 for about a month or 2. It was chaos. We were happy, but then the servers started to get overloaded, and that's when the server downtimes began. But then more bad news started from there. There were internal factors, but soon after, a powerhouse game called Diablo 3 to be exact, was released, I think, around May. We were number 1 for a short while, then dropped to number 2. Still, we thought, it's okay, it's Diablo, right? It's Diablo. We never planned to be number 1 anyway, so it's fine if Diablo pushes us down. But then, a month or 2 later, Blade and Soul, I think it was Blade and Soul, was released.
That's right.
So our ranking dropped again. Pushed down by Diablo and Blade and Soul, we naturally became 3rd. But if we had been 3rd from the start, it would have been fine. However, after hitting number one and then suddenly dropping to third, even if number one wasn't our goal, it felt strange.
Been number one before.
Right, because we've been number one before. We used to have a monthly show and tell, like a company meeting. I gathered the Korean staff and said, anyway, what is our goal? It's player focus. Was our goal to be number one? No, it wasn't. Whether we're third or 30th right now, that's not what's important. So what should we do? Let's consistently stick to the basics and focus on the players. And right then, I recall we had a drink, even though it was broad daylight. I deliberately said, let's cheer up. That wasn't our goal anyway. Let's do what we originally planned. Let's work for the community with a player focus. But at that time, honestly, it was easier said than done.
What were your true feelings?
My inner thought was, wow, if this continues, I'm really going to be out. The weight on my shoulders was heavy. Many people had joined, trusting me. Still, while worried, I thought, we have to stick to our path. And many ideas came up. Let's hit hard with marketing now. Let's do a lot of ads and promotions.
The games ranking first and second must have been advertising heavily.
They did a lot. Riot rarely advertises. We focus on holding events for key communities. There were many suggestions like, let's do promotions, let's offer discounts, let's give it away for free, but we didn't do any of that. If we do that, our brand will be ruined. Let's not. As time passed, we didn't take any particular action, but suddenly our market share started to rise again, and around autumn, we became number one again. After that, it became the longest running number one PC online game in Korean gaming history.
I definitely saw it surpass 100 weeks. How many weeks did it go up to?
After over 200 weeks, I saw yesterday that the market share of League of Legends is 40% in Korea.
That means if you go to a PC bang, 4 out of 10 people are playing League of Legends.
Exactly.
These days, LOL is like a salmon. Sometimes other games hit number one. When PUBG was number one, people wondered, can a Korean game truly be number one again? Then LOL came back. When Overwatch surged, it was like, oh, is Blizzard surpassing Riot again? But then LOL returned, back to its home, its seemingly permanent number one spot.
That's right. But what I want to emphasize here is that even now, and back then, our goal wasn't to be number one. That's why Riot has come this far, why LOL is still number one, and even Valorant is recently ranking third or fourth. That's how it is. Honestly, what's the secret? There's no special secret. Anyone can do it. Whenever people ask me, how does Riot do so well? I ask them a question in return. What are your goals for 2023? Most people talk about health. What do you need to do to be healthy? Exercise, manage your diet, sleep well. Everyone knows this. Then if I ask, so why haven't you lived that way? They give various reasons. It's exactly the same. Everyone knows the answer. They want to do it, but either can't or don't. Riot is like that. We stick to the fundamentals, truly believe that our boss and owner is the player, and all decisions in every meeting are made based on this. That's it. As a result, after 20 years, a company like this was born, and after 12 years, League of Legends still holds a 40% market share and remains number one.
Oh, something I'm suddenly curious about. Korea does an excellent job broadcasting LOL, right? The panelists and announcers all know the jargon well and study a lot. I'm wondering if other countries with leagues also have such well-established infrastructure.
Now, most of them do. In the early days, they didn't. No one did it like Korea. We had professional commentators and all the infrastructure in place, but other countries didn't back then, so they started from scratch and benchmarked Korea. As an aside from that time, the esports team visited Korea several times. We arranged for them to meet with OGN, watch broadcasts, and have continuous meetings with experts there. Mark Merrill and Brandon Beck also came, visited our stadium in Yongsan multiple times for matches, attended the finals, and so they did a lot of benchmarking. They even visited player accommodations. I think it was CJ Entus at the time, to see how the players lived. We familiarized ourselves and benchmarked in this way. So as time passed, after 10 years, now every region has that level of infrastructure. Korea is exceptionally good, but other regions also have a very high standard.
So when you say the esports team came, you mean the department at headquarters responsible for esports visited Korea to learn, and then they took that knowledge global?
Correct. And in doing so, we got ahead in many aspects in a way.
A sudden question. In Korea, there's a specific caster tone that started with caster Jun Yong-jun, right? That StarCraft match has begun, or it's over tone. If you watch soccer broadcasts, styles differ by country. Is it the same for Esports?
In the early days, yes, as you mentioned, for Korea, caster Jun Yong-jun was unparalleled at that time, and still is. Actually, as an aside, even our headquarters said he was the best. Even if you don't understand Korean, just hearing his voice is enjoyable. You feel like you know what's happening, like you're right there at the scene, the way he commentates. But back then, in the very early days, if you watched North American casting or commentary, it was very subdued. Who got a kill, who moved where. There was some analytical aspect, but it wasn't like the Korean style. Then it gradually became more Koreanized.
Is it like that overseas too?
Yes, essentially he's the textbook example. Everyone tries to emulate Caster Jun. There are some regional differences, but anyone can see he's so good, so things gradually change in that direction.
We don't watch LOL without knowing the game, right? We know what's going on and they play a role in hyping up the excitement, so I think that's great.
Even people who don't know LOL well, perhaps even older folks, have probably heard of Faker. He's appeared on many entertainment shows, and people also know how high his salary is. Faker has become such an iconic figure. What I found a bit fascinating is that LOL is a 5-player sport. To see such a legendary figure like Faker emerge from a 5-player esport. For example, in the NBA, the league office constantly tries to create stars. When Michael Jordan retired, they were like, who's the next generation star? We need to promote this person. They do things like that. In LOL's case, what factors contributed to the emergence of such a legendary figure as Faker?
Truthfully, as you said, Faker is incredibly famous, but Riot never intentionally tried to promote him. Faker became famous naturally because he is just that good. The most significant episode was the 2013 LOL Champion Summer at the Jamsil Olympic Auxiliary Stadium. I remember it rained that day. KT and SKT faced off in the finals. The score went to 2-2. It was a nail-biter. That itself was exciting. In the 5th set, it went to a blind pick. The crowd went wild, people were screaming. Someone unfamiliar with the game might wonder, why are they acting like this? But because it was a blind pick, everyone was losing it. At that time, the most OP, overpowered champion was Zed. Everyone expected Zed to be picked. And when the picks were revealed, KT's Ryu picked Zed, and Faker also picked Zed. Wow, the place erupted. The best players, the best teams, facing off Zed versus Zed. This is what Korean fans wanted. The broadcasters were thinking, this will get ratings. And as esports fans, we were just incredibly excited. And so the match began. It was neck and neck. Ryu and Faker were dueling in mid lane, but Faker was a bit low on health. In that situation, the now legendary scene unfolded. With a flurry of moves, Faker got the kill. Ryu, unfortunately, seemed to have a mental breakdown. The crowd went absolutely insane. People stood up, screamed. That clip still circulates today. That's when Faker, who was a rookie at the time, started to become known. As that video went viral globally, people outside Korea learned about this incredible player. After that, he went to World's League of Legends World Championship and won. In 2013, on that stage, Riot introduced him boldly, saying, Faker is the next generation star of League of Legends. This person will simply become a star. And that became a reality. Even 10 years later, he's still the world's best, isn't he? Notably, other players came out and talked about Faker. He became the pro gamer's pro gamer. It was like, anyone can see I'm the best in my country, but Faker is overwhelmingly better than me.
That's respect.
That's pure respect. That's how he naturally became known among fans. And even now, Faker is incredibly famous.
He truly is, all over the world.
He's extremely famous overseas as well. I've heard many anecdotes through our Riot staff, but if I were to share just one, it was last year. The LOL World Championship qualifiers were in New York. The match had started, and there was a huge crowd when suddenly a few NYPD officers entered the venue. The NYPD from the US. American police can be intimidating. As you might have seen on the news, there are clashes, they're physically imposing, and there are many stories, right? Incidents of violence, everyone gets nervous. The Riot staff also tensed up, thinking, did an accident happen? The worst case scenario, what if they stop the match? They have significant authority. So Riot staff, the main supervisors there, approached the police and asked, "Anything wrong, officer? Is there a problem?" Suddenly, one of them grinned and said, "I'm here to see Faker. I came to see Faker." We don't know if this person was on or off duty.
They might have come without even changing their clothes, right?
But they came in their police uniform, thinking, the LOL World Championship is happening here, I can't miss this chance. An officer came in. They watched the match from afar to see Faker, got excited, smiled, and then left. That was one such episode.
Please tell us one more. This is so interesting.
In 2014, the All-Star event was held in Paris.
Paris this time?
Yes, Paris. It happened to be Faker's birthday that day. It's not like Faker announced, "It's my birthday," but all the fans there knew. Someone suddenly shouted, "Happy birthday, Faker." And then everyone started singing in unison, "Happy birthday, Faker." It turned into a concert venue. Speaking of which, a few years ago, there was a match in Florida, USA. So players and fans were staying at the same hotel. Then, in the early morning, an alarm started blaring, a fire alarm. Since it was dawn, people were startled, rubbing their eyes, and came out practically in their underwear with just a gown thrown on. People were rushing out, and as the staff were doing a head count of the players, they realized only Faker hadn't come out. They got worried. He wasn't answering his phone. Later, Faker emerged calmly, walking steadily. But while all the other players were in their underwear, Faker came out wearing his uniform. "What on earth? Why didn't you come out? And what's with the uniform?" Faker explained. "There are fans here." That's professionalism. He said, "Since there are fans here, I felt I should come out dressed like this." Fortunately, there was no actual fire. Faker was right. All the fans there, even though other players were present, flocked to Faker. He spent hours there signing autographs for every single one of them.
In the early morning.
He signed autographs, then he went back in. In the entertainment world, Yoo Jae-suk is known for being very good at self-management, right? Thorough. In Esports, there's Faker. He's not just good at the game, he meticulously manages himself in every aspect, and he's also known for being very filial. He has a huge fandom, and to maintain that status even after 10 years, there must be a special reason. I do think it was possible because he's Faker.
The Korean player Mad Life, also known as Mera, right? He's called the father of supports, and he's truly the player who established the standard for how the support role should be played. And also after a LoL Champions match, the champion Faker picked then gets played massively by US regular players, right? There seem to be many ways players shape or change the game. I'm curious about what kind of relationship Riot has with such players and how you view them.
Pro gamers, the players, are truly companions, partners in a way, even spouses in co-creating the game. Aren't pro gamers the stars of esports, right? They also bring joy to fans as heroes and are stars who can be role models. They are extremely important. We build the game together through partnership. For example, firstly, when watching matches, we often learn things like, can this champion be used with this strategy? From pro gamers. Can a champion originally meant for top lane go mid, or can they jungle? We learn all these things through pro gamers. Therefore, that gets reflected in new development. Secondly, and this isn't widely known to the public, when we create new content like making changes to the map or creating a new champion, we sign NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, and bring in pro gamers. So pro gamers come from Korea, Europe, North America to do advanced testing and provide feedback.
Because of balance, right?
Things like balance, or whether something is good or bad in actual gameplay. We might think it's good when we create it, but these guys are the experts. We can only proceed if they think it's okay. And who else can provide that level of feedback? That's why pro gamers participate in such development.
Have there been cases where Riot hired retired pro gamers or such individuals?
I'm not too familiar with LOL's side. But for Valorant, there definitely have been such cases. For instance, former pro gamers, like champions from other games such as CSGO, have joined as team members and participated in design. Such instances are quite common.
You explained earlier that Korea clearly holds a pioneering position globally. One more thing I'd like to ask. On entertainment shows and such, when people from overseas visit Korea, going to see esports events is apparently part of their tourist itinerary. In that sense, from your perspective abroad, not just regarding Riot, is there a genuine atmosphere of respect when people look at Korea, similar to how England is viewed as the home of football?
Absolutely, yes. Korean esports is definitely the EPL, English Premier League, of the scene, generally speaking. Because fans have respected Korea from the very beginning. It's still the world's strongest, isn't it? So, as you said, when fans come from overseas, they want to go to LOL Park, they want to visit PC Bangs, and they want to meet the players. In a way, just like international fans come to Korea and want to see BTS in front of the HIB building, esports fans want to come to Korea. They know Korean esports that well, they continuously watch it, and they respect it.